Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
Hey, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I am the host of the Smart Business Revolution podcast, and every week I get to talk to smart CEOs, founders, entrepreneurs of all kinds of interesting companies, ranging from Netflix, Activation Blizzard, LendingTree, OpenTable, Axe Software, and many more. I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects with Dr. Jeremy Weisz. Dr. Weisz, tell us about your show that you've been hosting for, 12 years now?
Yeah, this will also be on inspiredinsider.com, where I've had some cool guests like you have, and Atari, P90X, RX Bar, and maybe just products and people and companies I admire.
Constantly getting interesting new guests. You always get some great ones. So I'm excited to talk about this. In this episode, we're going to talk about 10 reasons that podcasts fail. You know, we've both been doing podcasts for 11, 12 years now, seen a lot of good ones come and go, unfortunately. And so these are the most common reasons that we've identified for podcasts and podcasters to give up on actually doing that podcast. But first, before we get into that, this episode is brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, ROI, strategic partnerships, referrals using done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And if you've ever been curious about starting a podcast, shoot us an email, support@rise25media.com, or visit our website, rise25media.com, and happy to help you out. All right, so Jeremy, let's hop into this. So we've identified at least 10 different reasons. There's many more, but we narrowed it down to 10. And let's start front and center with one of the most basic of all, which so many people, I think they don't even realize this until you really dig under the hood a little bit, but it's about not getting ROI, not getting return for your efforts, not getting some kind of results for all the hard work that you're putting in. We see it all the time. It's probably the number one reason that people stop doing it.
I think all of these will fall into two categories, which is not getting proper ROI or any ROI and spending too much time and energy. Okay. And this one, the top one is not getting ROI. And there's a lot of reasons why people don't get ROI.
Yeah.
Right?
It can be a long list. The wrong strategy, haven't thought through that strategy, not implementing the strategy in the right way, all those different things. So, but that's just an overarching one, not getting any sort of ROI. And how many times have you talked to someone who's been doing a podcast for a year, 2 years, and they're frustrated because they're saying, like, I haven't gotten anything for this.
Right. It goes down to the right strategy. And we've talked to people who've even had a podcast and they had 500,000, 1 million downloads.
Yes.
And hadn't gotten ROI.
Absolutely. Yeah. Millions of downloads. And, good for you. That's great. But, the metric doesn't mean anything if you're not getting any actual results for it. And we should say, as a caveat, we are experts in B2B podcasts, in the B2B space. That's who we help people with. So we're not talking about your, thriller, murder, mystery podcast type of thing, or, a bunch of people talking about relationships or something like that. We're talking in the B2B space. What about another one we identified was featuring the wrong types of people on your podcast? Talk about that, Jeremy.
Yeah. I mean, when you're thinking of the types of people you want to have on, it's kind of a combination between a cross-section between a bunch of different things, which is you want it to be great content. You want it to be someone who's in your space, whatever space that is. And that could be a thought leader, referral partner, strategic partner, potential client. So that goes into another thing, which is we did another episode, which is the 5 types of content you need to be creating. But oftentimes when you're talking about the guests you have on the show, you get enamored and you go off in different directions, which don't fit the strategy.
That's right. And, you mentioned the 5 different types of content that we see people creating, or that people should be creating. And oftentimes it's over reliance on one type of content. So it's very one dimensional, and they lose out on all the many different other types of benefits that you can get. Simple example, I've seen very few podcasts that long term that are a solo episode, that are just someone speaking into a microphone. I've seen a lot of people who say, I'm going to do this differently than everyone else out there. I'm just going to talk into a microphone and I'm going to share my wisdom each week. And those types of podcasts tend to last a month, 3 months, and then eventually get bored with it because it's not interactive. It's not fun. It's not interesting. Even if you were able to do it long term, you're missing out on all the benefits of up-leveling your network, connecting with interesting people, meeting new people, getting referrals and introductions to other types of people in your space. You lose out on all those different benefits by just focusing on one type of content.
Yeah. So the wrong ratio definitely affects people, and we could link up the 5 episodes you must create if you're doing a podcast, because we go more in depth on those. The next one is the time and energy that goes into the wrong things. And we've had people where you refreshed, yeah. You timed out for a second there. I was just saying the next one is the time and energy that goes into the wrong things. So we've talked to people who they say, I'm not sure why it's not working. And we're like, well, what are you doing? And they're like, well, I basically am sending 5 tweets a day and 6, posting it 6 times on Instagram. And when we look at their Twitter or Instagram following, it's like 50 people. So right. It's just focusing the time and energy on the wrong thing.
Right. Yeah. And maybe they in conjunction with that, they also haven't thought through the right types of people that they should be featuring, that they should be talking to. They haven't thought through how they're going to leverage those relationships either. What about sponsorship? We hear this so frequently. I just need to go out and get some good sponsors.
Yeah. We have a strong opinion on that. And a lot of times people come to us, and that's kind of going into focusing on the different metrics that we're not focused in on, which is downloads and subscribers. Because in order to really attract sponsorships, most of the time you need to prove out that you have a listener base and subscribers and downloads. And really, if someone has a real business, a B2B business, then we don't feel there is a need for sponsorships.
Yeah.
Right?
And I'll add one caveat. You are particularly creative when it comes to leveraging sponsorships and combining them with a variety of other things. So it could be some kind of services relationship. It could be a sponsorship and a live event that you want to put on, especially a conference that you might be attending. So there are some real creative solutions as far as that's concerned. It could be related to an upcoming conference. But that takes some creativity. It takes some thought. You have a ton of experience in this area, Jeremy. But a lot of people think of sponsorship very one-dimensionally. It's just, you write me a check, I'm going to read a sponsor message, just like I've heard Joe Rogan do. Problem is, you don't have a Joe Rogan size audience. What about complexity in the process? This is another common reason podcasts fail. Too much complexity in the process, Jeremy.
We're all about simplicity, right? And it's funny because we did a course on how to build a profitable podcast, and we came on and we showed this amazing soundboard with wires going every which way. And we started off by saying, this is what you need to podcast. And then we just said, just kidding. You don't need any of this. Like, you really just need Zoom or an easy way to record and a microphone, a USB mic. I mean, that's really what you need. And people get all types of equipment. They get all types. They have like apps syncing to each other for the best sound and for whatever. And you want quality, but at the expense of quitting, start off simple. And when you get that process down, if you want to add things to that. But we see so many people say, well, all the people are doing Zoom, I'm only going to do in person. Well, once anyone has done in person, I've done in person many times. Once you did in person, you have just a lot of complexity. And when I do in person, when I've done in person, I have a full video crew because I don't want to have to deal with the tech and anything like that. So, it's a whole different complexity but now I got to get the recording from them and, get it processed the way I get it processed. So really just to reduce complexity, keep it simple. And the people who quit or fail, they just have way too many things going on. All right. So just think about how do you reduce the complexity. And part of the complexity could be in the guest booking process. So, back and forth with the guest and be like, well, it's really hard to coordinate. Well, a simple booking, scheduling link. There's lots of them out there. Calendly, you can book me, Acuity scheduling, getting something like that to reduce the complexity on the guest end. Also, if asking way too many questions and asking way too much of your guest is also creating complexity for them. So reducing it down. The next part is going cheap and hiring a discounted freelancer. And the reason is, it's like you want everything, your time is valuable as a business owner. So you want to minimize your time. And I forgot who said this, but if you don't have someone project managing it, you are the project manager for it, which means you are not valuing your time to coordinate all the freelancer and what's going on. So you just want a team to just do it. So you could show up, you could talk. And if you have a B2B business, usually if you get one client for the year, you can get ROI. And it's funny because when we talk to different companies, it could be an SEO company, a website company, when they are talking to a client, they're advising them, listen, hire the experts. We're the SEO experts. Absolutely. If you are a dentist or a law firm or a chiropractor, then they're saying, hire us. And they're advising their client to not try and do it yourself. There's a lot of complexity. There's a lot of, expertise. But when it comes to ourselves, sometimes we're like, well, I'll just hire a quick freelancer to do this. Well, hire the proper team because they're going to give you the strategy and then take care of all the rest of the stuff. So don't go cheap with this. You don't have to go like ultra expensive, but you want to make sure it delivers you ROI. All right. The next one is not asking for introductions. Like when you're talking to people and you have great guests that you have on, whether it's referral partners, strategic partners, just people you want to give to in your universe, not asking for introductions. Ask for people for suggestions of guests. You don't have to, we don't have to live in a vacuum. We can ask people for their help and suggestions. The next one is this is a big one actually, not having a clear path for people to engage with you in your work. So if you don't have a well-documented product ladder, and what I mean by that is let's say your service is $20, $30, $50, $100,000 and you have a high level service. Well, how can people work with you? And as Jason Swank and Ian Garlic talk about making sure you have a foot in the door or a blueprint that people can experience your work and engage with you and pay you for your expertise, and they learn how you work together and get value from you at a smaller level and then build up to a larger project. So if you have a clear documented product ladder, it really makes it easy for people to work with you and get ROI, which leads back to why a lot of podcasts fail, because you're not getting ROI. And another one, John, that we've talked about is thinking all you need to do is create great content. What do you say to people when it comes to that? Basically, when people think all you need to do is create great content, well, it's kind of like the field of dreams, like build it and they will come. That most of the time doesn't happen. Okay. Just having great content is not enough anymore. There's so much great content out there. You look at, I don't know how many videos are produced per day on YouTube and on podcast channels. So it's just not enough as far as that's what's going to make you stand out. The other part, another one is focusing on the wrong metrics. And focusing on the wrong metrics, which kind of goes back to the strategy piece. But we would do a podcast even if no one was listening, just because of the relationships that we've built, and also because you have the top industry experts on that you can learn from it. So it's really professional development and learning. And so those are the main ones overall that you should think about, which kind of get categorized into not getting ROI, not having the right strategy, or spending too much time and energy on things that we should not be spending the time and energy on. So overall, those are some of the specific examples under those two categories that are really reasons why we have seen podcasts fail. So if you have questions, ask us. We're happy to help, and we try and keep things as simple as humanly possible for people. You can go to rise25.com. You can email us at support@rise25.com to learn more. And we're always here.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.